What's up, YouTube? WinterGuard here. Today we're going to touch on something that occurred yesterday, 10/14. The Blizzard put out a explanation of all the issues they've been having, and for those that actually want to read it, I will link it in the description. I'm not going to read through all this. I'm just going to touch on some highlights and how this is going to affect gameplay for the foreseeable future, based off of some of the things they said here. Basically, what they did, they went through everything that occurred as of last weekend. And I had mentioned in a couple of videos about the server issues that have been occurring. They went into a lot of detail, which is honestly kind of surprising. They gave a breakdown of what happened, how it occurred, why it occurred. But as I said, I'll link this so you guys, if you want to read through this. I just want to touch on a couple things that they mentioned here that was actually kind of surprising. A couple things that occurred last weekend, and this was after game launch. They actually had some spikes where they actually hit player counts higher than the actual launch, which actually is kind of crazy. But they mentioned that, and that caused issues to start crashing out because they couldn't handle the load, which we all kind of had a feeling that there were load issues. I'm not going to get into why they had these issues. They do that themselves, and they kind of explain it. It's a little crazy, but it's a good read. So if you guys want to go through it, but some things to touch on here that is notable. Hold on, let me back up here. I think it is right here. Yeah, they are going to be basically re-architecting the database structures that they're using. So, good and bad, this is probably going to take a while to do because when you get to a redesign like this, like they're mentioning here, this is not a small undertaking. And as they say here, it will take some time to build, test, and implement. But basically, they're going to take the current database structure that they're using, which is basically right now they have a global database where everybody's information is saved, and then they have regional databases, EU, North America, and Asia, that are more localized, and that's where your character saves are occurring while you're playing, and then eventually that stuff gets pushed back up to the global database to be saved. Basically, they're going to restructure this, how and what they're going to do. They don't get into that detail, but they're going to be sinking some resources and time into this, as they say. But this is probably going to take a while to implement. So how that affects us going forward, that's what I kind of wanted to touch base on, because they mentioned two things here that we've been running into, but wasn't sure what was occurring, and they get into some detail here. First off, they're talking about rate limiting. Basically, they're going to block your game creation based off of how often you're doing it. So if you look, and they specifically point to this on Pendleskin runs, and it just so happened that that's what I was doing when I noticed this, and I was looking into seeing if there was some server issues, and I went on to Blizzard's Twitter and noticed that they had linked this post. So I saw this last night. I wasn't running into it too much because I was playing kind of late, but this afternoon, which is more of a peak time, I'm on US East time zone, so I was doing Pendle runs, which are fairly quick, as they mentioned here. Every 20 seconds, you could, and that's probably, I actually timed it. I could be in and out of a Pendle run in probably 20 to 30 seconds. So what's occurring is when you go back in, and I'll show you what happens if you try to create a game too quick, you will get the error message. And that's the thing, it's kind of misleading. You're not actually having an error connecting to the game. They're just using that messaging now because they're putting this rate limiting in place, and it's basically slowing you down in your game creation. So it's kind of harkening back to the old days where you would actually get a realm down back then, which was a little worse because it would knock you offline for a pretty decent amount of time before we could get back on and play. It's not that bad, but basically what they're doing is if you are creating games too quick, they're going to add time to your game creation. And that's what that error message does. It basically adds anywhere from 5 to 15 seconds of time uh, based off how often you click the button to get into the game. So they're just spreading the time out between game creation for you if you are flagged for creating games too quick. Now I did a little bit of testing on this, and what I noticed was and you guys can do this as well if you want to check it out. If I created the game and got out within that 20 to 30 second threshold, and actually it seems to be a minute or under, you will get this flag, this error message. And it will add another 10-15 seconds of time onto game creation. If you are in the game for over a minute, you can go right back in. I tested this multiple times. You guys do it as well, just to verify what I'm saying. But I had a timer and I set it. As soon as I was over a minute and I left the game, I could go right back in to a new game. If I was under a minute, I would get the error flag. And I timed that, and it was about 10 seconds on average that it was adding to game creation. And again, this is not an actual error. This is the rate limiting that they're putting in place here. And it's funny that they specifically use Pendleskin as an example. Because let's be honest, most games are not going to be that quick in and out. Pendleskin is probably the only one that you're going to do this, where you're going to be in and out of game creation real quick. Even meth runs, which can be pretty fast, are still 2 minutes average. Some can do it way under that, but you'll be lucky. It'll be based off the map whether you can do it in under a minute or not. So this is mainly going to, you could probably do Shanker Eldritch in under a minute based off the spec. But that's what I'm seeing. And if you guys are seeing that error message, know that if you're creating games quickly, it's not an actual error. It's this rate limiting that they are mentioning here. Also, they're talking about login queue creation, which if anybody's played WoW, you've seen this. If the server's pretty full, you'll get a queue, and it does a countdown to where you can actually get in. They're talking about implementing that, and they've also apparently done some on the back end so that you're not actually going to see the queue pop up. It's right here. It's saying if there's a strain, there's also been a queue partially implemented on the back end, but you're going to get a failed authentication to the client. And they're not adding any new messaging right now. It's not an actual failure. It's just that there's a back-end queue implementation occurring that is trying to, I guess, limit how many people are connecting at a specific time. So if you get that failed authentication, you could probably just try again and you will get in at some point. It's not an actual error that's occurring. They've put some system in place on the back to slow the people logging in. So basically, we're going to be seeing these two things probably for a pretty good while, it seems, because they're talking about restructuring how they have the databases set up right now. And until that is in place, we will probably be seeing this. And they say that this is not a long-term fix. It's just something they have to put in place to mitigate some of the issues they're having. So I just wanted to touch base on it for those that haven't seen it. At least they're being a little more transparent as to the issues that are going on, because again, they went into pretty good detail as to what occurred specifically over the past week uh, that caused the outages and downtime and the players losing character or getting rollback, all that stuff. They touch base on this, so I'll put the link in the description so you guys can see this. It's kind of crazy, but at least they're giving us a little more info than they normally do. For those that have played Blizzard games for a while, it's kind of crazy that it's 2021 and they're still not able to handle the amount of players that come with launch and after launch. We've seen this probably for every game that they've released. I The only one that I can remember that maybe didn't have issues was Overwatch. I don't remember there being that much of a server issue or any kind of launch issues with Overwatch. But for WoW and a lot of the X packs and Diablo 3, I want to say StarCraft 2 had a bunch of issues. They've got kind of a track record for not handling the initial capacity. Well, what are we at? We're at about 3 weeks in now. So, and they got a roadmap for some fixes that'll probably take a pretty good while to get into place. So it's kind of crazy. But leave a comment of what you guys think. Test me out on the timing issues with game creation. I'm curious to see if you guys are seeing the same thing I am. On a side note, I do have an idea on how I'm going to be doing the giveaways for the Iraq belt that I found in the last video. I was going to put a content video up, but I've been having some connection issues that kind of stem from all this, and then they put this out, so I kind of wanted to touch base on it. So next video, hopefully have out here within the day, content wise, and I will be putting details on how I'm going to give away the belt. So stay tuned for that, and you guys have a great day. Keep on farming.